Well, I've already done an introduction for this on the other video, so I might as well get to this. This is going to be the final video on my favorite stands, and there's a few things I missed in the first one. So here's what I meant. A shirt design like this. That's how it's said, and I got a question on how I know Giorno's voice. Well, you know, the games. But at the same time, we don't have the same voice actor for Josuke, so I can understand the confusion. This is Killer Queen's voice. It might sound the same as Kira because it is Kira, but most stands that speak share the same voice actor. That's why you could never tell the difference between a Star Platinum aura and a Jotaro aura. Well, you probably can, there's different voice effects, and that's what I missed. So, let's get on into the stands. Now, we are in Vento Oreo territory, and my first stand is going to be Gold Experience. In the previous video, I told everyone that there was a stand to contest my #1 spot with another one, and the two duking it out are Killer Queen and Gold Experience. Killer Queen was one where I was able to get almost everything I had to feel about the stand into words, but it's a bit difficult with Gold Experience. I think one of the major reasons is due to how the stand was written to work with Giorno, and since Giorno is already one of my favorite characters, his stand accentuated this hidden appeal to his character. GE with the ability of Life Giver, where if anything gets these hands of life, many things can happen. That's another reason why I like the stand. Many things can happen, and they do. I love it when a stand isn't limited to its ability, and the ability makes the stand and user think outside the box on execution of said ability. Then there's the stand cry. There's something about Gold Experience yelling Muda over a variation of aura that makes me love the stand even more. And trust me, you're going to get a lot of Muda. I don't know how it's going to translate into the anime, but it's going to be a big one when we get there. On the design, I love the direction Araki went with the stance when going on into part 5. Gold Experience closely relating to who Giorno is through the design and all the little details to make it all the better. From the ladybugs to the noticeable angel wings you'll see on its shoulders. And side note, when I see wings like this, I think of Wartortle, and I like the wings on both characters, or well, stand, person, and Pokemon. There's also a couple of side notes created by Araki about his thoughts on the design of Gold Experience in JoJo Agogo that I could feel and agree with. Next, there's the sounds you get with the stand and how Giorno says Gold Experience and Muda Muda. Giorno speaking in general is just beautiful, and Muda Muda is overall my favorite stand cry. Second being Ari Ari, third Volavia, and fourth being how Tusk says aura, which is probably the best aura because of how off-putting it is. And lastly, the musical reference. Any Prince reference is a good reference. So, final thoughts, amazing ability, favorite stand cry, amazing design, fighting for my #1 spot for my favorite stand, and great musical reference. The next part 5 stand is going to be Black Sabbath. Let's just get something out of the way first. Black Sabbath was already a hard name. No pun, that's an extremely metal name. Turning this name into a stand had to have been a hard job, but it completely paid off. The stand had the ability of drawing power from shadows. Having a power based around shadows with a name like Black Sabbath had me love the stand already, but the fight was even a bigger reason. Not going into detail to those that haven't even read it, I'm going to tell you that it's a good fight. The final point being the design and the stand meets along with the rest of the Triforce of what I like about stands. The other two things being name and ability. The design of Black Sabbath fits so well, I don't really have much to say. You can even go about the X-Words video for that one. It's actually, I love that too. This is a stand where everything connects, and I think that alone was it for me. It got to a point of where I told myself to buy something to commemorate how great Black Sabbath is, but you can't buy a single figure because everything is sold out. Final thoughts. I don't think Black Sabbath is a stand of all stands like how Star Platinum is portrayed to be, but I think that Black Sabbath is one of the few stands that shows how they're supposed to be designed. Like, they meet on all points possible, and it's amazing. For the next stand, White Album. I'm sure that I like the stand a lot due to the fight we had, but speaking on why I liked it because of the fight, I've mentioned that I love adaptability. In all things, there must be a balance. With yin, there's yang. With bad, there's good. With death, there's Africa by Toto. Now, I almost forgot the balance and didn't do a weakest stand video after my strongest stands. Since I'm still working on how I'd like to determine that, I'm going to have this, which is, it possibly can go hand in hand with the weak category, it kind of depends. This is going to be my worst stand list, and a few things to get straight first. For one, my thoughts on a stand holds no binds to how they were introduced, who the user is, or the fights involved with these stands. A few of the stands I have on this list have good fights, but this is on the stand, not everything around it. Second, worst is subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You might like some of the stands mentioned here, and if you do, then you probably have your reasons on it, so there go, that you're fine then. Now, since we got all of the formalities out of the way and I'm not going to hurt anybody, we can start this all off. Number 10, Bastet. For what Heritage for the Future did to the stand, I give it massive credit. I think if I had seen this humanoid form in the manga or anime, I don't think I'd even be mentioning the stand here at all. But for my first reason, look, the first time I had seen this, I died just immediately. I like the idea behind the stand and its ability, and I love the game, its humanoid form, but when it comes to this outlet, I just can't get behind it. The idea of it just being the one to unfortunately touch the plug and that was set due to the stand is just so odd, since it looks like it just comes out of nowhere. And it's possible that if I saw the humanoid stand set the trap before people got zapped, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it, or at all with the stand. I mean, matter of fact, if Bastet was just shown for what it was the whole time, I think I just would have liked the stand as a whole. Number 9, tenor sax. So this is a stand where Araki had just put himself to chill for the moment in the story, and I get that. Sometimes you'll need a character for that, but here's the thing. This stand had potential to outdo what Strength did as a stand if you added in with the ability to manipulate the surroundings so it would have combat abilities. That would add in a lot of suspense. Now, if you were to merge Vanilla Ice and tenor sax together for the fight, which originally I thought that was what's going to happen, it would multiply the level of suspense. But I do like Vanilla Ice being a solo stand user that could take out a whole team, which was way cooler and did a lot more for the scene. I saw more potential with this stand, and it being a Kenny G stand is just like, come on, dude, he was done so wrong. But Araki knows about what happened, and he likes Kenny G too, so he goes about looking at tenor sax like, yeah, my bad, dog. Number 8, Yo-Yo Ma. Now, look, let me sit down with you real quick. I'm gonna be real with you, dog. I think this is the only time where I ever wanted to physically throw a stand. And when I see D&G, I'm amazed that he's one of the stand users allowed to share similarities to the stand when it comes to design. Okay, well, they share a hat. Here's the thing. The feeling I have for this stand is like when you see something that makes you shiver and you want to get rid of it as soon as possible by throwing it in a fire, just throwing it in general, or something. The feeling I get with this stand is the same thing that I get with like all the puppets from Goosebumps. If I was to ever see either of them, then my tactical visor just immediately activates. But I'll give it credit. That's probably what it was going for, since you kind of can't get rid of it without killing the user. Number 7, Boy to Men. Or like it's technically Boys to Men, I guess that's how that's supposed to go. Here's another thing I forgot to mention. Me not liking the stands holds no binds to its references before anyone loses their mind. Because trust me, I love Yo-Yo Ma. I love Kenny G. And when it comes to Boys to Men, man, while I like the arc with Rohan beating up a kid, I'm all for that. I just want to put the spotlight on the use of the stand. Imagine you're getting robbed, and then you run up on the robber, challenging him to rock, paper, scissors. Guess what? Option select, you die. Though I would love to see that as a comic. I hope Janken Kid I hope he grew to like more games, because that's not going to work out in life like that, but there's that. I kind of like the stand design, though. That's something I honestly feel. Number 6, Atom Heart Father. I don't think that it's that difficult to see why Atom Heart Father would be bad. Imagine if Okuyasu didn't let him out, he would be stuck there for all of DIU. If your stand can get you into a situation like that, you might as well just be standless. Though I will say that the stand would be amazing if you could change what camera you're bound to. Could have been used for a photographer stand user that traps people into his realities. I think the only thing you would want to do then is to add a weakness, since you can change what camera you're binding to. Not bound in a way that Atom Heart Father or Superflyer bound, but more on having to keep the item on you at all times. So you're the photographer stand user that can capture people in your realities because you keep that thing on you. Number 5, Superfly. Number 5, Superfly. Number 5. Okay, look, the fight was clean, and Toyo is cool, but imagine being bound to a transmission tower. How Toyo innovated and made his stand work for him is amazing, but I think it would be terrible to have a stand like this. I'd rather it be the first stand that people see and fear when they see it moving, because because imagine having this tower drag behind you as you walk. I wouldn't actually want that in a part, but I feel like there could have been a different approach for the stand. I also want to see someone get caught by Superfly and turn it into metal for it. Like when you see Mecha Josuke, I was like, yeah, I need to see this, but in full. Just hopefully make it someone else that got caught up into it. Another comic idea, summoning Superfly. Just Josuke running up on Toyo and Toyo summoning this gigantic stand. I'm coming to the sudden realization that all of these stands have potential for comical comics. Number 4, Cheap Trick. So you're telling me that if someone looks at my back, then I'll die? Alright, yeah, no, totally, I got you. No, don't, thank you. And trust me, I know that they said that this stand was underdeveloped. There was a lot of stands that are underdeveloped that have a potential of being stronger than they were. Now, there are things that I do like about Cheap Trick. There's its independence, like stands like Anubis, and the coloring that was used in the manga. I like, well, it's not, obviously it's black and white, but like the colored version of the manga where it's blue. There's not really much you can say about Cheap Trick. I feel like it was made to be one of those stands where that you want it gone, but at the hand of like the worst fate possible. And, well, he got that, so we're pretty much good here. Number 3, the Sun. I give credit to the user for being able to play all of the Stardust Crusaders at once and making Joseph curse, both great things. Well, old Joseph. But, geez, man, like, okay, look, I know Cheap Trick kills you. That's bad. But imagine having a powerful stand and you have to work around your stand because it can kill you. Matter of fact, you can't use it against someone unless you prepared beforehand. You can't just run up and use your stand, or else you'd probably die. Which is also a comic idea. Look, if you're an artist, you'd be making Koala right now. This is all these comics are out right here. But I'd be massively disappointed if my stand was the Sun and it could kill me. No one would be able to combat you if you were affected by your stand. Well, if you weren't affected by your stand. And I don't really think a lot of people can grasp how bad the Sun really is and how your own stand affecting you really is. Imagine if Star Platinum stopped time. Except he can't move in it. Except he can't move in it either. So basically nothing would happen. And if Star Platinum didn't have a limit on how long he could stop time, time could be frozen forever. That's just terrible. Number 2, Notorious B.I.G. Now, you have no clue how hype I was to hear about Biggie being a stand. But that stand only coming to life after it dies. See, attacking your user is bad. Only coming to being when your user dies is just a completely new level. This isn't talking about the originality that goes into the stand, or even the stands that I previously mentioned. This stand did its job in the arc and was well enjoyed. But speaking on the practicality of the stand, if someone was to obtain this stand, it's just it's terrible for the user. And there's no way of you knowing that your stand did its one job, and you have to go about your ghost life thinking about that. Now, while I can picture Carne looking at the earth and just being disappointed that his one job was not fulfilled, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's pretty funny. Okay, but aside from that, I actually see some symbolization in how Araki had made that. Seeing that Biggie had gained life after death, it's either an album reference or the effect on him. It's one of the two. And now for the final stand, which I will say is the #1 worst stand of all time. Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright. Since we're being real here, and the other people confused about me picking Bohemian Rhapsody, like they're gonna be commenting right now and completely avoiding this, let's talk about what happened here. Now, do I think that
JoJo as a series is no stranger to unsettling, disturbing villains with equally terrifying abilities. However, in my opinion, there is one that takes these factors to an incredibly effective extreme, both in his character and especially in his stand, due to how these ideas are completely and utterly integrated with both the origin and the execution of that stand and person. If I could choose 2 words to describe Golden Wind's main villain and Passiones boss, Diavolo, it would be mysterious and intimidating. Nothing about him makes sense, everything's contradictory and unclear, and the only absolute truth to him is that he is powerful and unsettling. His motives are grand and megalomaniacally ambitious, as he wishes to stand at the apex of all hierarchies and rule from above, while obsessively craving to be free of both his past and any and all identity. And all of this is perfectly reflected and expanded upon in his terrifying stand, King Crimson. A disturbingly tall, imposing humanoid stand, King Crimson appears as a royally red, muscular figure covered in white webbing and separate bits of armor. Its constantly distorted face, and the fact that it has 2 of them, make him a consistently disturbing image. It doesn't help either that it is among the physically strongest stands in the series, being able to punch through an adult human body with neglectable ease. Overall, the mere presence of this stand is enough to inspire anxiety and terror with the pressure it exudes. This gets dialed up to 11 once we begin considering the actual ability of King Crimson. It has the rather terrifying power to erase time. Now, I know what you're thinking.
He erases time, but what does that mean?
As much as its confusing ability has become a meme, King Crimson's power is actually not all that complicated. King Crimson works by first using his second face, Epitaph, to look 10 seconds into the future. If he sees something that is unpleasant to him, or that he would like to avoid, Diavolo activates King Crimson's Time Erasure. Once activated, it puts everyone affected into a sort of trance, in which they can only do what King Crimson foresaw, so they're technically being tied to that fate. Only Diavolo is able to act of his own accord. After 10 seconds, the ability ends and no one besides Diavolo remembers what occurred in the erased time. To them, it's as if time skipped or was erased. However, while the actions you took during the erased time have vanished from your memory, the results are still present. So, for example, let's say you want to punch Diavolo in the face. He looks into the future and sees that and thinks, nah, I don't like this. So he activates King Crimson. You lose control and consciousness over your actions, and are locked into your punch, while Diavolo can freely move around. After 10 seconds, the ability ends and Diavolo has dodged. From your perspective, you raised your fist towards the man standing before you one moment, only for your arm to already be stretched out and the man gone in the next moment. It's as if you suddenly skipped forward. So, in essence, King Crimson's main ability is incredibly broken. But even more so than that, it is terrifying because it messes with 2 fundamental aspects of our relationship with reality: time and our agency and control over our actions. It strips us of our conscious ability to act and condemns us to follow our fate blindly, which is incredibly effective at making us and the characters feel helpless, since lack of control is one of the things that will frighten humans the most. Additionally, while messing with time is by no means a new concept within the JoJo-verse, stopping time and rewinding time are somewhat straightforward to understand. But erasing time? The fact that it's so confusing among a lot of the internet community is proof that this has some sort of different effect on the mind trying to understand it. That is, at the very least, an incredibly abstract idea, and it's this bizarre abstraction that makes even just the principle of this power unsettling and intimidating. Not to mention that this is just King Crimson's base ability seen within the series. A huge aspect of Part 5's second half is the desperate race to the stand arrow, which, if in Diavolo's hands, would allow him to hypothetically evolve his stand even further into the possibly monstrous and most likely invincible King Crimson Requiem. So already we have an insanely strong package. But this gets even further enhanced once we consider the origins and ideas behind King Crimson, and for that we need to look at his name. Like most stands in the series, King Crimson gets its name from a musical reference, specifically the British progressive rock band King Crimson. Their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King, is generally considered a milestone of progressive rock, and it is this album that is generally attributed to be the stand's main origin. While the many songs on the album have various different elements Araki referenced most likely, I would like to focus on the two that are the most relevant and the most influential ones on King Crimson and Diavolo. These two being Epitaph and In the Court of the Crimson King. Let's start with Epitaph. This song works as a sort of prophecy in regards to what will happen if Diavolo reaches his goal of absolute power and dominance through the arrow. This section in particular describes how Diavolo's instrument of death, namely King Crimson's union with the arrow, would affect the world. Every man is torn apart, and silence drowns the screams. Additionally, the line, with nightmares and with dreams, could be related to Diavolo's obsessive delusion of grandeur and immortality, as it isn't unlike a dream state. His mindset and ideals are further referenced in this line. The Iron Gates of Fate are clear references to Diavolo's belief that fate is predetermined, specifically that his
これは試練だ。ちょっとだけ相手をしてやるか。
Hello everyone, X4's here, and welcome to another JoJo's Bizarre Adventure discussion video. Today we are going to compare two main antagonists from the series, Part 3 Stardust Crusaders Dio in all capital letters, and Part 5 Vento Arreo's Diavolo, to see who has the greater stand. Both of these characters are often compared to each other because of their striking similarities. Throughout most of their story arcs, they were hidden in shadows while sending waves of stand users at the opposing protagonist, trying to eliminate a bloodline, eventually having each part climax at a final battle between our heroes and a stand with time manipulation abilities. Dio and Diavolo do have many similarities, but at the same time are very different characters. Taking a look at these characters' personalities, first up we have Dio, a selfish, sadistic, egotistical sociopath, referred to in the series as evil incarnate. He's also a vampire and has an obsession with power and immortality, and possesses the stand, the world. As for Diavolo, we have a proudful mob boss, the leader of Passion, with a ruthless and brutal will to keep his past and identity a secret. Diavolo also has an extreme case of schizophrenia, otherwise known as dual personality disorder, sharing his body with Doppio, a friendly, honest, good-natured teenager with an extreme loyalty to Diavolo. His disorder is so bad, his actual body will change with his personality. Diavolo is also one of the most psychologically damaged characters in JoJo's. With his false sense of superiority, he believes that all of his luck is fate choosing him, and that all of his difficulties are fate testing him, and he will have to overcome and prove himself. Diavolo legitimately believes that he will lead Passion forever and that he is immortal. Diavolo's stand is King Crimson. For this discussion, we're mainly going to be focusing on Dio and Diavolo's stands, the world, and King Crimson. Both of these stands have to do with time manipulation, and are some of the strongest stands in JoJo's.
お前がたった今目撃し、そして触れたものは未来のお前自身だ。終わらせてやろう。
The goal of this video is to decide which stand is not only stronger, but just overall better in general, and is more absolute. We will be analyzing both of these stands, looking at their different abilities, powers, and also their statistics. And then once we've looked at both of them, we'll be able to compare, and then make a conclusion on which stand is greater. Starting off, the first stand we'll be looking at is the World. The World's user is Dio Brando. It is an extremely powerful close-range stand, very similar to Star Platinum. It has super strength, super sense, and super speed. Effective manifested range at only 10 meters, requiring a close distance to inflict damage. The World's main offensive attack is a barrage of extremely fast punches and kicks, almost identical to Star Platinum's Aura, but instead shouting Muda Muda Muda. The World's strength and speed may actually be faster than Star Platinum's. In Jotaro and Dio's final battle, although Jotaro did defeat Dio, there was a point in the battle where the World actually bested Star Platinum in a deadlock of rapid attacks and strength and speed. Besides super strength, senses, and speed, the World's main ability is Time Stop, allowing only itself and Dio to move within the duration of stop time. The World's maximum limit to Time Stop was 9 seconds. The limit would have continued to grow if Dio would not have died. The only true counter to Time Stop is another Time Stop ability as seen by Jotaro. The World's stats are an A in destructive power, A in speed, C in range, A in durability, B in precision, and B in learning potential or development. Moving on, we have King Crimson. The stand user is Diavolo, and his ability is erasing time rather than stopping time. King Crimson's ability is one of the most convoluted, confusing, and unelaborated stand abilities in the whole series, and it doesn't help that Part 5 has very poor translations. King Crimson's ability has spawned the infamous meme "It just works," and also people trying to describe it with this sort of imagery. King Crimson's ability is actually relatively simple. It just seems that everyone overcomplicates it with explanations like this. So after doing research and seeing other people's interpretations of King Crimson's ability, I found someone who actually has a great explanation and also does a very good job at defining the ability as well as simplifying it. So a big thank you to the Reddit user Candide Camera for providing this explanation. Now we will go over that explanation in a little bit more detail and finally talk about how King Crimson works. So we all know Diavolo's stand is King Crimson, but he also has another ability that people label as a sub-stand called Epitaph. This ability, Epitaph, allows Diavolo to see 10 seconds into the future by creating images in the banes of his hair. When King Crimson activates, everyone but Diavolo blindly acts out whatever actions Epitaph predicted. And as they act out the prediction, they're essentially unconscious and they cannot react to whatever Diavolo does. As for Diavolo, he is not forced to follow his own prediction. He can move freely while everyone else is essentially sleeping slaves. This gives Diavolo the ability to move out of the way of attacks and also set up counterattacks and put himself at an advantage via his position. Diavolo cannot interact or attack anyone while their prediction is coming into fruition. When people describe King Crimson's ability, they fixate a lot on the term of erasing time. But really, time being erased is just a metaphor for the fact that nobody remembers what happened during King Crimson's effect. So I really think that King Crimson's ability can be described perfectly without even using the term erasing time at all. As for what it would be like to actually fight against King Crimson, essentially it would just be a complete mindfuck. So if you're Diavolo's opponent and you have no idea how his ability works and you're running at him, charging up your fist, ready to punch, before you know it, as soon as King Crimson activates, you will already followed through with your punch and you would have no idea how you got into the position that you're in, and your mind would just be rambling, and before you know it, you'll have a King Crimson judo chop to the back of your head. Or in Bucciolati's case, you'll have a King Crimson fist through your abdomen. Onto its stand stats, King Crimson has an A in destructive power, A in speed, E in range, E in durability, precision unknown, as well as development potential unknown as well. And that pretty much wraps up King Crimson's analysis. I hope that wasn't too confusing for you guys and it gave you a better understanding on how King Crimson's ability works. Finally, we have analyzed both of these stands, and now that we have a greater understanding of what they can do, we can go ahead and compare them. Dio and Diavolo's stands, through translations, do sound very similar. One can stop time, one can erase time. They can do this for almost exactly the same amount of time. To the users, Dio and Diavolo, their stands are very unique and very different the way they perceive them to work, but to an opponent, they would seem almost identical when battling. For example, let's say Josuke encountered Dio and Diavolo on 2 separate occasions. And during Josuke's encounter, he experienced the effects of both of these stands, but was not attacked physically by Dio or Diavolo during, before, or after the effects of their stands took place. To Josuke, these stands would seem extremely similar, as Dio and Diavolo would just be teleporting or having extremely fast speed before his eyes. The only difference is that after King Crimson's effect, Josuke would be confused because he wouldn't be in the same position that he started in. So when comparing these stands in a one-on-one encounter with an enemy, they're almost identical. On Dio's case, he's going to kill the opponent while time is stopped, and once time resumes, they're immediately going to be dead. In Diavolo's case, he will set up the perfect counterattack and then attack the enemy while they are confused and disoriented, after all of their movements have been predicted. And either way, both of these stands are invincible in a one-on-one encounter. Unless, Jotaro or Gold Experience Requiem. If we look at the drawbacks and flaws of these stands, you'll really see where the world pulls ahead of King Crimson. King Crimson needs an extremely close range to activate his ability, and also requires an extreme amount of stamina. And when Diavolo's stamina gets low, he is not able to use King Crimson to the fullest of its ability. On the other hand, the world only has a short cooldown period, and is much more spammable than King Crimson. Another drawback to King Crimson is his inability to take out multiple enemies at once. With King Crimson's ability, he can predict people's movements, but he will only be able to set up a counterattack to one opponent. Although it could be possible that he puts himself in a situation where he would be able to counterattack both opponents at once, but depending on the distance of the enemies, that could be very unlikely. When on the other hand, the world has a 9-second period to really just do whatever he wants. He could go up to multiple opponents and just rip their heads off if he wanted to. He never did that, but he definitely could have. I mean, if Dio's capable of grabbing a steamroller and then throwing it into Jotaro within time stop, imagine what he could do if he had 5 opponents just right in front of him. Both of these stands have very absolute powers, the world being able to completely stop time, and King Crimson being able to see the absolute future. But in conclusion, and in my opinion, I would have to say that the world is a superior stand. I couldn't think of a situation where I would rather want King Crimson over the world, unless I was going up against another time stop ability, or I needed to see what my opponent was going to do before I killed them. And when it comes to a time stop ability against King Crimson, I would just assume that whoever uses their ability first would be the victor. But I think that discussion would just have way too much speculation involved. So, that was Dio versus Diavolo, a comparison to see which stand is greater in my opinion. Not a death match, like I said. If we were to pit Dio versus Diavolo, there would be a lot of speculation, and I think it would come down to whoever used their ability first. So thank you guys for watching this video, and let me know what stand you think is greater and why. Don't forget guys, that's just my opinion, and I personally believe that the world is a greater stand. If you disagree, I would love to continue the discussion down below in the comments. Be sure to like the video if I occupied your boredom for a little bit, and also subscribe if you guys would like to see more JoJo's Bizarre Adventure content. You guys can always request any sort of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure what-if scenarios or theories if you would like to see me make a video on it. If I like it and find it interesting, I definitely will. Another big thanks guys, and peace.
執着の血を焦がす寡黙な炎おびき寄せられた神々の化身恐れその格好日本の学生かやるってんならやってやるぜ Open the game!
Hello everyone, X-Forts here, and welcome to a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure discussion video. Today we have the long-awaited and highly requested episode of Standoff between Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable's Josuke Higashikata, and Part 5,